The star of today's dish is this cabbage, and because the weather is going all cold again, well, at least here in Germany, and I've heard all around Europe, I thought I would make something hearty and warm to keep us warm for the coming cold days, hoping that the spring would come soon, but well, until then we have this or not this, but the dish that we're making today to keep us warm. I've got inspired again by a traditional Finnish dish. It's called Kaalilaatikko. It's a kind of cabbage casserole. The star is the cabbage, and then it also has rice and minced meat, so it's really a dish that will make you full and that will keep you satisfied, and it's also warm, so it's great for this kind of weather. I got inspired by the traditional dish, but I made it my way, like I always do, and I hope you will like my version of this dish. You want to start by peeling the onions and the garlics and slicing them finely. Then you also want to slice the chili finely if you are using it. So as the recipe says, this is optional. You can either use it or not use it, but it just adds a really little heat to the dish. Actually, I'm adding so little that you don't really even feel it in the dish. So it doesn't make it spicy. Then you want to press the garlics using a garlic press, or if you don't have a garlic press, you can also just slice the garlic finely. Then you want to peel the carrots and grate them, and the next part I'm showing here is dicing or slicing the cabbage, but what you can do is you can start frying the other ingredients and meanwhile slice the cabbage. That way you can multitask and save a little bit of time. But once you get to the cabbage, you want to first half it and then remove the middle part, which is really hard. So this part here at the bottom, I'm just taking that off. And also there are some other parts that can be a bit too hard. So while you're slicing the cabbage, just make sure you take those out as well. You want to slice the cabbage really thinly, so as thin as you can. That will speed up the cooking process, and also it is just more pleasant to eat the cabbage when it's finely sliced. So I was talking about those hard parts. For example, here, this part, it's really hard, so I don't want that into the dish. I'm just cutting the middle, which is the hard part, out, and then I'm gonna use the rest, so no waste here, just cutting the really hard bits out. Then you want to take a really large frying pan or a wok, I'm using a wok, and then cover the bottom of your pan with olive oil. Now you can add the onions to it and start frying them on medium heat until they've got some color. Now you can see the onions have started to get color slowly, and next I'm going to add in the carrots. Now that I've added the carrots, I'm gonna allow them to cook for about 5 minutes, so again frying on medium heat and mixing once in a while. And then you can start adding the cabbage. Here I'm gonna give you a couple of options. So if you don't have a really big pan that fits all of the cabbage, what you can do, you can fry the cabbage on 2 separate pans, or you can do like I'm doing here, so just fill up the pan up until the top and allow the cabbage to start cooking. And then once it starts to shrink and there's some more space, you can add more cabbage in. This is a bit more time consuming because the cabbage is cooking slower and you are adding new cabbage time after time. So this took me about an hour, and if you want to save that time, you can use a really big frying pan so that it fits all of your cabbage, or you can use 2 pans. Now that your cabbage is in the frying pan, prepare the vegetable broth. You want to boil 1 liter of water and dissolve 2 vegetable stock cubes in it. Then you want to add about 400 milliliters of the stock to the cabbage. After that, cover with a lid and allow to simmer on medium heat. You want to keep on checking the cabbage once in a while so that it doesn't burn. There is a lot of liquid and it's also just on medium heat, so at this point it probably won't burn, but I would still suggest to check it once in a while, give it a short mix so that it cooks evenly. And here I'm adding a bit more on top because I have some more space available. Just as a little tip for those that will be using the same method that I used, so adding more and more after some of the cabbage has shrunk. At the beginning I could only add about half of the cabbage to my pan, and then by the end all of it was in the pan and the pan wasn't even full. So that means the cabbage really shrinks a lot, so you can actually fit a lot more in the pan at the end than what you could fit in the beginning. Once you notice that the cabbage has shrunk to about half of the size, you can remove the lid, and at this point you would also want to add about 100 milliliters of the stock and turn up the heat. So at this point you can turn the heat up to a maximum, but you need to keep on mixing all the time. So if you notice that it starts to burn, then you can lower the heat a little, but you want to have a high heat so that the cabbage starts to get some color. We want to get a really nice caramel-like color to the cabbage. Once you have a beautiful color on the cabbage, you can start seasoning it. And I'm seasoning it here with some salt, with black pepper, dry garlic powder, my favorite spice, the dried thyme, and with some marjoram. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. It is a really hard word for me to pronounce because it's very new. So I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Then you want to mix the spices in well. And now we are going to add a little bit of the dark molasses. I don't like this dish really sweet, so I only added 2 tablespoons, but you could also add from 2 to about 4 tablespoons. Then you want to also mix the molasses in well, and you can then remove the cabbage from the heat. The next part is something that you can make meanwhile. So while your cabbage is frying, you can prepare the mincemeat. Add some olive oil to a frying pan and start frying the mincemeat on medium heat until it's almost cooked through. Once the minced meat is almost cooked, season it with some salt, some black pepper and some dry garlic. This way you will ensure that all of the components of your dish are well seasoned. Then you want to mix the seasoning in and remove the minced meat from heat. Now you can add the minced meat to the cabbage, and you can also add the rice to it. Now just give it a good mix so that it's all well combined. Next you will need a deep casserole dish, an oven-proof casserole dish, and you want to butter it well with some butter. Then you want to take about 10 grams of butter and add small dollops of the butter at the bottom of your casserole dish. And then pour over the cabbage with the meat and the rice. Then I forgot I had to add the stock, so I added the butter first, but you want to add the rest of the stock at this point to the casserole dish, and only then you want to add the rest of the butter on top. So that way around, not like I'm showing here in the video. But well, if you forget like me, then it doesn't matter. For the complete recipe and for the tips on how to bake this dish, please check the link in the description box to my website. After baking, you want the cabbage casserole to cool for about 30 minutes before you serve it. There's one more little thing I wanted to tell you about this dish, and that is, in Finland we enjoy it with lingonberry jam. If you cannot get lingonberry jam, I think you could use cranberry jam instead. But really try this dish with the jam because it makes a really big difference. So I have some here. I put the jam on top, and another one thing that I remember from school is that we had it with some cottage cheese. So that's something I'm gonna grab now, and then I'm gonna enjoy this dish from my childhood. I hope you liked this traditional Finnish recipe, and if you did, please don't forget to leave me a thumbs up for support and subscribe for some more delicious recipes. Thank you for watching my video. Bye bye until next time.